Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session at MedTech Strategists Investment and Partnering Virtual Summit, where we will be covering 3 powerful ways to revolutionize your approach to closed-loop quality system traceability. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tom Risch, and I'm a Senior Medical Device Guru at Greenlight Guru, and I will be your moderator for today's event. We've got a really special presentation scheduled for you today. I'm looking forward to sharing valuable insights and expertise on the best strategies, tactics, and tools for this demonstrating closed loop traceability that you can start using today to achieve truly connected quality at your organization. Before we dive too deep into today's presentation and introduce myself and the company, I want to touch on a few items real quick. First, today the webinar is going to run for about 60 minutes in total and will include some time for Q&A at the end of this session. I encourage you to submit any questions throughout the webinar as they come up in the box on the right-hand side of your screen. I will get to as many of them as I can as time permits, and I'll be looking at those questions once the content portion of this webinar is done. I'd also like to share a few words about Greenlight Guru and why we put on these free training sessions. If you've been to one of our sessions before, you know we put these on because improving the quality of life is our mission here at Greenlight Guru, and it's likely a similar mission to many of you on today's webinar. Anything we can do as an organization that helps device makers bring safe, life-changing devices to market quicker and with less risk to the patient aligns with that mission. Constantly looking for ways to fulfill our mission, whether that's through hosting these free training sessions or partnering with world-class medical device professionals through our award-winning medical device QMS software. Now on to today's presentation. To start off, I'll explain a little bit about my background and my role at Greenlight Guru. As mentioned, I'm a senior medical device guru. What that means is I help our clients that use our software to bring products to market and set up a quality management system. I worked for a large organization in the orthopedic industry for about 5 years and then went to a startup for another 4 years in the orthopedic industry and both managed a QMS and worked on product development to help bring products to market. Today, most of our customers have that goal to get their product to market, and I work with them using our software to do so. After today's presentation, you will walk away knowing 4 things, and that's the goal, to touch on each of these 4 things. First, we're going to talk about some of the industry challenges and barriers to demonstrating closed-loop traceability within your quality system. We're also going to talk about some of the purpose-built tools with latest technologies that enable your team to achieve closed-loop traceability. I'm going to specifically point out 3 ways to powerfully advance your approach to that traceability using our system. And then finally, we're going to talk about how we can optimize our QMS for traceability and maximize value from your quality data. First off, before we get into all of that information, we want to define what is closed loop traceability. I've learned working in the industry, it can mean different things to different people. Here at Greenlight Guru, our definition is the ability to connect people, processes, and data seamlessly across the value chain, closing the loop between pre and post-market activities. We know in paper-based systems and really in any type of quality system that has multiple tools that are disconnected, it is very hard to have everything interconnected and speaking to each other. So many groups work in a silo. That's just the nature of any business and certainly so in the medical device industry. And what's difficult about that is so many of the decisions you are making, whether it's pre-market or post-market, need to include other information for you to make that decision wisely. So for example, if you're going to change a design of your product, you need to know a lot about the manufacturing aspects and the inspection forms and things like that. Or let's say you have a complaint or a nonconformance that comes up after you've already done your design transfer. You need to have quick access to the design control matrix, to the risk matrix, and to any changes that have been made to that product previously to know, what changes should we be making, or can we make a change? Will this lead to additional risk for the patient? So what we're doing is we're just trying to get all the information easy to find for people so that they can make good decisions, whether they're early in the process of design and development or later in the manufacturing once the product has been launched. Closed loop traceability is a must. There are a few reasons why. One, it simplifies a complex quality system. All of you know that quality systems can get big and unwieldy, and it's hard to find what you need to, especially in those paper systems. Things might be stored on people's hard drives. They might be in filing cabinets. I know when I worked at a big company, we even sent a lot of documentation off to a storage facility, and it took 48 hours just to get it back. And so that certainly is an example of closed loop traceability. Two, we want to improve the efficacy of changes, investigations, root cause determinations. So many important decisions are being made throughout the product life cycle. We want to make sure that the information you need to make the decision is available, readily available, and right at your fingertips. We don't want you to have to go searching for that information or having to bug a lot of people. I remember when I was making changes, I tried to button up as much as I could early on, but sometimes it was just hard because we were so siloed. And so a closed loop traceable system will bring that information together. And then the third thing, streamlines audit and inspection prep time. I mean, that's the main goal for many of the people here. We need to pass our audits and our inspections. The more information, the better organized our information is, the easier that is to find. And that's really what we want to do. We don't want to spend 2 weeks prior to every audit inspection just getting stuff organized. We want to be ready at any time, because as many of you know, the FDA can show up at unannounced. Their notified bodies can show up unannounced, and we want to make sure that things are ready to go at any time. One thing we want to talk about, we try to make a lot of decisions at Greenlight Guru using data from the industry and a good following of medical device professionals. So we wanted to get some information from them about what challenges they have with closed loop traceability. The results were very interesting. When it came specifically to that closed loop traceability throughout a quality system, we found that 45% or almost half the people we surveyed could not demonstrate it today. And that's certainly concerning, especially for all of those companies that are making devices that are higher classification, class 2, class 3, and can cause some harm to a patient. We want to make sure that the information people need to make decisions are available. We looked at when we continue to dig deeper into some of the findings, we found that, some people did say that they can demonstrate closed loop traceability, but they 1 in 3 of those people, 30% of those people said it takes a lot of effort to do so. And we have people fully dedicated to just maintaining organization of our quality system. So I know there are companies out there with document control groups or quality system administrators that aren't even working on strategic initiatives or maybe things that seem more fun to most people. They're just working on keeping things organized so that you can find them if needed. Now we'll talk a little bit about some of the industry challenges around closed loop traceability. Many of us have worked in a paper system before. It can be very complicated to find things. And as we said before, a lot of the things are in silos. And so your manufacturing group does their thing, the development team does their thing. The quality group, in fact, gets a lot of this put on their shoulder. And we say, they're kind of like the police. They're always trying to look over our shoulders as product development engineers or as manufacturing professionals, and trying to keep us on track. And it's a hard job. One, from a just human to human connection, you feel like you might be holding people back, or they feel like they can't design or test products how they want to because they're always working about documentation. But that's very important for pre-submission or from a 510K or during those inspections and audits. And the quality team is really just spending a lot of time trying to organize documentation. There's filing cabinets. There might be a mini library at your company that stores all of the information in a disconnected manner. Here at Greenlight Guru, we've set out to try to imagine a new way of doing this, and we want to make sure things are automated, connected, efficient, intuitive, clear, data driven is such a high, there's such a high emphasis across all industries, especially medical devices. We want you to have good data to make your decisions, and we want it to be visible to you. We want things to come to the surface so that you can find them. A lot of times we talk about our CEO, Jason McKibben, who's really had the vision for this, talked about, think about going on a trip. In the old way of doing that is you maybe got an atlas or a map, and you charted out exactly where you were going to go along the way. You charted out what gas stations you might stop at, what restaurants you want to stop at, and you followed that plan. And it took a lot of work to build that. And then with cell phones and with Google Maps and all of the other technology that came with that, you could simply plug in your destination at the beginning of your journey, and not only would it tell you exactly how long it's going to get there, it also tells you what restaurants are along the way, what gas stations, and it just brings that information to you in a automated and efficient and very clear, visible way. And we thought to ourselves, why can't we do this with a quality system? Why does it have to be that old way where everything is manual and disconnected and siloed? We talk to a lot of people that say the old way leads to a lot of human error and causes a lot of risk. I've talked to people that say they have to do multiple change orders for the same thing because they forgot documents the first time. Or maybe when people launched their product and they started getting complaints, they had discussed a certain risk early in the process, but nobody ever documented it. And so they never implemented a design feature that was going to prevent something from happening. And so we want to prevent those things. We want you to focus on your products. We want you to focus on selling your product. We want to focus you to focus on helping people, not on trying to find information to make your job easier. The new way, to bring this all together, we have our new way, this network view of our quality system called Visualize. And what we want to do is leverage the data that you enter into our electronic quality system software, and also use some machine learning to try to bring things to your attention that could be linked. So let's say you have some documentation that you've linked together, but then there's some other documents that reference those documents. We want to bring that to your attention and let you know, hey, we've created this network view of your quality system that shows all of the connections, not only the ones you made, but the ones that we think should be made by you as well. So to bring you to that Visualize, here is the initial screenshot here of what we're trying to do. So like I said, we want to create relationships among all of your data inside of the system, not just documents, but you can see here harms from your risk matrix, or projects that you have started, or products inside that project maybe, or design control items. Whatever it is that goes into your quality system, we want to make sure that it's all interconnected and there is linking that is done. And many of that linking is powered by machine learning and natural language processing. So the best quality professionals out there that have a good plan to set up a quality system, they can set up up a pretty good connected system, but just by the sheer volume of what's involved and by the limitations on the hours in the day, some things may slip through the cracks. And that's where we want to use this machine learning and natural language processing to help you along the way. So there's still going to be quality professionals that are overseeing this, but we want to use the system to help you and make your job much easier. You can see here from the screen, we're going to dive into some of these exact use cases on the next couple slides here, but this is it's a first glance at how we have a project that's in the middle of this screen, and I can see all the connections off of it. I can also filter those down, so I know if I have a project and I really only care about the harms that are associated with that product, I can filter it down to the harms. I can filter it down to change orders associated with this project, nonconformances, and so on. So we not only want to give you a lot of information, but we want to give you very focused information when needed. The layers here, we're going to dive into the layers, but this is very important. I've talked about how quality professionals can set up these relationships on their own. Those direct linkages will be some of those linkages that your team has set up. For example, you have an SOP for design and development. You might have some work instructions for how to build out a technical file, HF. You can create those direct linkages. But then maybe somebody from your organization creates a project plan that references the SOP for design and development. The dotted line reference will tell us through machine learning and natural language processing that you have some other documents in your system that reference this SOP. So you want to make sure that you know that they are used by those in case, let's say you go and update your SOP in the future, know to go and check those project plans to make sure you don't need to update anything there. Overall, what we've been talking a lot with our clients about is the old way of a quality system. Think of it as going through a large city and trying to find your destination. You're going to be walking through traffic and large buildings and small buildings and people, and it's going to be hard to know where you're going unless you have that map. With Visualize, it's like taking it back and coming up to a bird's eye view where you can oversee the city and pick and choose exactly where you want to go to find your way to your destination. And you know, we've had a lot of success stories with our customers that we'll dive into here a little bit deeper about how it helps them just get a handle of their quality system. A little bit more about the linking. We talked about some of this already, but we can create that directional mapping of the items in your QMS. So here on the left-hand side, we're changing a supplier. We know that there was a nonconformance that was initiated because of packaging issues. We know that the packaging is part of a device master record that we want to check out. We might have even testing that's associated with this package, maybe bubble testing or seal testing, those sorts of things. And when we go to do that change order, we're just going to have a lot of that information right at our fingertips. And then again, we're going to give you information as to why these links exist. So from this product here, we have a link to a hazard from our risk matrix, and we know that we've created that link directly in our system, and it's telling us that here. Here are a collection of quotes from some of our customers that have started using Visualize so far. You know, we've gotten great feedback from auditors. Notified bodies are starting to understand our software and some of the capabilities of it. And right there, you can see from a former auditor that Visualize is going to save time for people as they prep for their audit. And as they even do their audit, we know there are a lot of back rooms that get set up, and there are a lot of people that are watching the screen trying to predict what might get asked for next, and then they're really scanning through all of your filing or your shared drives or your SharePoint sites and trying to find that information. And we want to make that much easier to hopefully make that back room a little bit smaller so those people can go and focus on other things. Again, you know, a lot of people say, I had this in my mind, I know where I need to go. There's a lot of tribal knowledge that is associated with quality systems today. This is going to eliminate that reliance on tribal knowledge and maybe a quality person that's been at your organization for many years, and let the system handle some of that information for you. And you know, there's just a lot of time that goes into interconnecting things in a quality system or finding things, and we want you to not have to focus on finding, but focus on more value added things. Now we're really going to dive into 3 specific examples of how we can help you with this. And so using Visualize, how you can achieve that closed loop traceability. The first one here is we just want to be able to efficiently navigate through the depths of your quality system. As we talked about, there is just so much you have to do to remember things, to reference things, to dig for things. There's so much reliance on people when they release new procedures or new documents to take initiative and find what else might be related to these different items. And there's a lot of human intervention needed to make sure that you have a connection. I know even like you do your best in your quality manual to give a flow chart of how all of your SOPs and all of your work instructions fit together, but that is a hard thing to maintain. What we want to do is we just want to find information faster. We want to be able to prep for audit and create that document structure. Like I said, I remember working in the industry, especially at the startup where I was managing the quality system. I pretty much every time took 2 weeks prior to the audit to try to prep. And I think what I used to do is I used to pull documents slightly out in the filing cabinet. So if I had 3 CAPAs that I knew were pretty good, I would pull those out to give myself a head start. I would hope that the auditor would say, bring me 3 CAPAs, and not ask for specific ones. And I would go to try to find those. Inevitably, they always asked for different ones, and I was always rummaging through filing cabinets trying to find exactly what I needed. And I, in addition to managing the quality system, you know, we all have deadlines for meeting our product launch, and killing 2 weeks before an audit is devastating to trying to hit those product launch deadlines. And so I always felt like it was non-value added trying to get ready for those audits, especially considering I could never guess what they were going to ask for. So the example we have here, I have a video, and really what we're going to do first is just look at a specification that we have in our system here. We're going to look at an SOP first. So we have an SOP 06. This is actually a purchasing SOP, and what I want to do is get a better handle on how what else is related to this SOP. So you know, I can see here that I have some of these solid line links that mean this SOP was uploaded initially when I started Greenlight as part of change order 22. It is actually related to a supplier assessment that I did for one of my suppliers here, Doc 55. But then I also have these dotted line references that tell me, you know what, I had an employee on this SOP, that person's training log referenced this SOP right in it. So um, that document for their training logs had SOP 06 right in it. So that told me, you know what, if I update this SOP, I better check that employee's training log as well. The other thing you can do is you can navigate through this. So we had a specification that was linked to that SOP. I recentered my Visualize on that specification. You see that a lot more links popped out here. And this is where the filtering really comes into play, where I can toggle off things on the side to make sure it's very clear I know how this relates. So if you think about this, I started with my purchasing SOP. It took me to a specification document that I share with one of my suppliers. And that opened up the door to a lot of different things, like design outputs that specification associated with. In a paper system or a disjointed electronic system, I would spend probably minutes or maybe even hours going to track down the design history file that contained that specification, or I'd have to find the specification in the first place. And with Visualize here, it was able to take us exactly where we need to go. We have flexibility to recenter things, filter things, pop out new links, etc. Go on to the next slide here. So first off, we just want to help you get a better handle on the quality system and how everything is interrelated. The next thing we want to do is really understand the visibility into our relationships here. So, as you do things, whether it's audits or change orders or kappas, you really need to know how everything is related to each other so that you don't miss anything as part of those investigations or audits or impact assessments. Again, the old way with disjointed, um, non-connected system, uh, it's going to be hard to find everything. You can do a good job of maybe finding some of the things that you need, but you can't really dig deeper into everything that you want to need. And one of the um, examples we're going to show here for this one is how we prep for maybe an audit findings, how we prepare for responding to audit findings. So maybe we open up a kappa to respond to our ISO audit findings. And if we have those audit findings, we want to make sure that we really understand those findings and understand everything that's related to those findings, because we know those are going to be scrutinized very heavily next time an auditor comes to go and close those out. So what we want to do is help you have clear connections, understand the relationships between all the information, and then just keep track of it all so that when you do write your audit reports, you can feel confident that you've solved everything. So we will go into this example here. We're starting with a kappa to respond. We had a couple of audit findings from one of our ISO surveillance audits, and that's the center node here. And so I have everything filtered off because I want to add things along the way. I want to keep this a little more controlled. So the first thing I want to do is just see some of the sources to the kappa. So when I click that, I've got some documents that are associated. I have the audit report itself. I have an SOP 06 in this case, so that purchasing SOP we talked about. I've got SOP 19. I have some other documents associated with this. So these are some of the things that were reasons for opening this kappa. I also then can add documents and other things. So as I scroll out here, I can check some of the relationships between these kappas. And what I want to do as I go to begin to write my containment actions, and as I go to respond to my notified body, I want to just make sure that I have everything. So in this case, it's the audit report. I need to double check to make sure I really have my understanding. I can click on the report and it will take me right to it. So you can see here, it's going to take me to the document that is that report in my system. And if I need to go through and read the report, I can do so. And so again, in other systems, you might be going to different filing cabinets. You might be following up with people that were in the audit room. You might be using a copy of the audit report and not the actual source file. We want to make sure that you have everything you need to do. You understand the relationships so that you can go through and respond well. The third item here, this is, in my mind, a more practical way of addressing some of this is we really want to go through and we want to understand the impact of any change. And so as I mentioned earlier, we talk to a lot of people in the industry that struggle with their changes. And I think the reason being is changes often cover so many functional groups. So you are making a design change. You need to consider those quality things that I talked about, like inspection forms and maybe machine programs, maybe work instructions for assembly or finishing inspections on your device. You also need to consider just those pre-launch things like the risk matrix and design control matrix, and you need to have good access to the verification and validation testing you did. I can't tell you how many times when I was working for an organization that a supplier asked us to change a very simple dimension on a drawing, and everyone said, oh, that should be really easy. But when we traced it back to the design matrix, we found that we did specific testing with this width. We chose this width because it met a user need, and we weren't able to make that change. Whereas if you didn't have clear information, you might have gone and made the change and led to a problem down the road. So with this specific example, we want to make sure that we find the documents we need to update. We want to reduce the risk of human error. Like I said, a lot of times when I was doing these changes, I wanted myself to come off as like I knew what I was doing, and I would try to search through manufacturing records on my own, and I didn't really know what I was looking for. Same with quality. I wanted to bring this all to the table for the reviewers, and inevitably I missed something, and it would lead to rework. And so in fact, I had a customer I showed this to, and he told me, you know what, every time I make a design change, I pretty much just budget in 3 change orders for that change. The first time I get most of what I need, then I realize, oh, I forgot one small thing, so I do a second change order. And then finally somebody comes to me a couple of months later and says, hey, I didn't know you changed this drawing. Did you know that we have this these special work instructions for that? And they never got changed as well. So he said, I used to have to do 3. I'm really hoping this gets me down to 1, and I think it's going to. So to show the video associated with this one, we have a change order in our system to update the width of our product. And I can see here that I have a drawing that is associated with this. So drawing 1233030 is in this change order. That's indicated by that solid line link. It tells me right there it's included. What's nice is I can see that I have some harms associated with this change order as well. I also have an SOP associated here that I brought in because that's some work instructions associated. What I didn't know when I pop out more information about my drawing here is there's a lot more I didn't realize were involved. For example, on the far left, I've got work instruction 02. That might have been that special work instruction that my colleague was referencing. And I missed it the first time, but with Visualize here, I can see, you know what? Simple click of the button pops out everything related to drawing 123. Work instruction 02 is there. I can simply add that into my change order. I feel confident knowing that I'm not going to miss that. I'm not going to have to rework this. I'm not going to have to lead to any potential risk of down the road. So to summarize here, we talked about 3 specific ways to help with closed loop traceability using Visualize. The first one is really just about setting the stage. We want to make sure that you can efficiently navigate through the depths of your quality system. You're not relying on filing cabinets or offsite storage or shared drives or people's hard drive even. Number 2, we want to increase the visibility into the relationships of your documents and items in your QMS. So whether that's responding to an audit, whether that's doing a full-blown CAPA investigation, whether that's investigating a nonconformance, even internal audits. I think getting ready for internal audits, if you do those well, your regular audits are going to go so much more smoothly. So we want you to find things during those internal audits to hopefully prevent that from happening during a real audit. And finally, the third one, the understanding the impact of a change. So people call it impact analysis, or even where used, or doing the things that you need to do to make sure if you're making a change to a document or a handful of documents, you've caught all of them that are related to this, and you've updated all of the ones that are related. You did it right the first time. We always talk about organizations don't really budget for quality per se. I mean, they certainly have quality departments with budgets, but as part of those budgets, they don't set aside a lot of money for rework or even small minor changes of doing a change order 3 times, and that can really have an impact on the financial situation of your organization. So we want to make sure that we reduce the opportunity for that happening. And ultimately, as I've said many times throughout the presentation so far, we want you to focus on value-added things like building and testing your product, putting together your 510K submissions, selling your product, marketing your product so that your company can grow and eventually bring more life-saving devices to market. Last few slides here, we'll talk a little bit about optimizing your traceability today. You're probably in fact thinking, you know, how do I do that? I gave some very specific examples, but from a higher level, how do I optimize traceability? I think the very first thing is, many of you on this webinar probably already know this, but you need to understand why closed loop traceability is a must for your business. I think the quality department often knows this. Hopefully the management knows it. Other groups sometimes though, like the development team and maybe the manufacturing team, they just know that they've got deadlines they have to hit and they need to make sure that they're focused on hitting those. They can't be slowed down or bothered by other things. But if we set up a good closed loop traceable system where everything's interconnected early on, it's going to help prevent things from going wrong and really then end up helping them focus on those value added things. It truly has to be a mindset from the top of your organization down to everyone. The second thing you can do is audit the current traceability of your QMS to ensure there is closed loop between cross-functional processes. That can certainly feel like a daunting task. So I always recommend break it down into phases. Maybe just say, hey, let's look at the connection between our design. Let's look at our design transfer process specifically and look at our connection between our pre-launch activities like building a design matrix and a risk matrix, and then connecting that to operations. So if we are making a change to one of our machine programs or one of our inspection tools, does that manufacturing team have access to the design control matrix or the risk matrix? Or have you done some sort of assessment to say, this dimension is very important, we cannot change it for these reasons, things like that. And so do that audit, gap assessment, whatever you want to call it. Start small and grow throughout the rest of the organization. And the last thing here, I mean, we obviously are very, our philosophy is to invest heavily in purpose-built tools. Our mission is to provide those for the industry so that, again, they can focus on improving the quality of life of patients. We think about all these things behind the scene. It's validated out of the box to be a closed looped traceable system, and we want to hand that to you so that you can go take it and run with it and focus on the things you need to. One thing before we end here, before we get on to the questions, is we do have an exclusive offer here. This is to help you get started with that closed loop traceable process, or that process of auditing your system. And what we have is we have 5 resources in this toolkit. I highly recommend downloading it. It's going to give you some tips and practical ways to start doing that assessment to determine if your system is fully closed loop and traceable as it is to be. You also can schedule time with us. So our website, you know, we do demonstrations and we will show you our software with this Visualize functionality specifically to show you how we can help from that third bullet point we said about investing in a tool to help you with that. Now we're going to go on to questions. So if you have any here, feel free to throw them in the right side. I've got a couple to go through so far, but if any more pop up, feel free to send them over. And again, don't forget that free webinar offer that we have, that toolkit to help you build out closed loop traceability. All right, the first question here is a very good one. Would Visualize be something to show an auditor? And you know, I get this from clients a lot, and my personal opinion is no. I know we have a lot of clients that do show Visualize and to auditors, and we've gotten good feedback on it. But my personal view of Visualize is kind of like it's basically a back room for you. So what it is I would certainly have somebody in the audit, maybe the right hand person of the person that's interacting with the auditor, to have visualize. They can listen, they can navigate through in the background to go and find exactly what they need, or what the auditor is going to ask for. As you all know, oftentimes the auditor says, I'm just going to take a random sampling of things, I can't check it all. And so I personally would use it in the back room, or as the sidekick for the person interacting with the auditor, to really dig through and find what they need. Another question here: how does closed loop traceability relate to risk management in the new ISO 14971, the 2019 version? So yeah, 14971, I think that one of the heavy emphasis of that, and also really the EU MDR, is emphasis on production and post-production activities. And so the way I look at this is, a lot of times in those siloed environments, the design team is doing the risk matrix. They're maybe trying to guess what the production team is going to do, or say, you know what, I'll worry about that later. With a closed loop system where all this stuff is interconnected, and your teams are working together, and the information is brought right to the surface as to, this manufacturing instruction is related to this design controlled item, this drawing. What it really does is help you prepare ahead of time. So when you're doing your risk matrix and you start adding those work instructions or those machine programs and you link them together, um, we're going to make it easy to link them. But then down the road, when those changes do inevitably pop up, or a new manufacturing person comes in and says, I want to change this process slightly, that person is going to have all the information that they need to know, you know what, I better not change that, because it is being used as a control to mitigate 5 risks on my hazard traceability matrix. And so I better not do that. So I just look at it as a way to help you, one, set up in the first place, the interconnections, and then two, help you make better decisions down the road, especially as people leave and new employees come. Another question is about supplier evaluation, and how does closed loop traceability fit into supplier evaluation? And I think, supplier evaluation at a big company, the supplier group was separate, and so they kind of did their thing on the side, and they gave us a list as design engineers of who we could use. Sometimes the list was good, sometimes I wanted to go and find my own suppliers. And we did that, unfortunately, maybe for prototypes and things like that. And we just thought to ourselves, you know what? Um, I'll get these added to the approved supplier list later on, and maybe I forget. And when product launch comes, we're really rushing in the last week prior to launch to try to get that supplier approved. So I think when you think about closed loop traceability, what you can do is you can connect your supplier evaluation process, make sure it references all the different areas, whether it's the design team or the manufacturing team, and know that maybe the design team shouldn't be picking people off that approved supplier list. In fact, maybe their design and development procedure has a direct link to the supplier evaluation procedure, and you're going to catch early on that, you know what, I want to use this other supplier for prototyping. I think they're going to be good for mass production later on, but I'm going to start the process of getting them approved now, so that I don't slow us down at the end of a project. That is all the questions we have. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for joining. I hope you found it helpful to learn a few things about closed loop traceability and how Visualize can help that. As mentioned, if you have any questions about Greenlight Guru, visit our website. You'll be able to get a demonstration about our product. There's also great content on the industry there. So thank you again for your time, and have a great day.